The figure of the Count of Saint Germain is one of the most curious and perplexing personalities of European history. A man who appeared out of nowhere in the early 18th century, he fascinated and bewildered the courts of Europe with his extraordinary talents, his vast knowledge, and the lingering uncertainty surrounding his origins and identity. His story has long captured the imagination of historians, scholars, and esotericists alike, for it blurs the line between historical fact and the mythic, between what can be verified and what remains forever out of reach. Saint Germain was not merely a figure of legend, but a man of many talents, known for his mastery of languages, his alchemical knowledge, his musical compositions, and his supposed ability to transcend time. He claimed to possess knowledge of events centuries past, spoke of people long dead as though he had known them personally, and according to some, never seemed to age. Whether he was a brilliant con man, an eternal wanderer, or something else entirely remains an open question, but the impact he had on those who met him and the legacy he left behind continues to provoke debate to this day. The emergence of the Count of Saint Germain. The first verified historical records of Saint Germain date back to the early 1740s when he appeared at the court of Louis XV of France. His precise date and place of birth remain unknown, and his origins were the subject of much speculation even during his lifetime. He claimed variously to be the son of a Transylvanian prince, the offspring of an exiled Spanish nobleman, and on other occasions he implied he had connections to the Habsburgs. By all accounts, Saint Germain was a man of immense charm and intelligence. He spoke several languages fluently, including French, German, Italian, Spanish, and even Arabic and Chinese. He played multiple musical instruments with great skill, and some of his compositions have survived to this day. His knowledge of science, alchemy, and esoteric arts was extensive, and he demonstrated an uncanny familiarity with the inner workings of the European courts. In 1745, Saint Germain made his mark at the French court, where he quickly ingratiated himself with King Louis XV. He was known as an advisor to the king, and some accounts suggest he played a role in diplomatic affairs behind the scenes. What made him truly remarkable, however, were the rumors that surrounded him. The courtiers whispered that Saint Germain was not a man like others. He had no known family, no apparent source of wealth, yet he dressed impeccably, carried himself like a prince, and was never seen to lack for money. He was rumored to possess an almost supernatural insight into events, and he often spoke of the past with such vivid detail that some began to suspect he had lived through the centuries he described. A man out of time. Among the most baffling aspects of Saint Germain's character was his relationship with time. He spoke as if he had witnessed significant historical events firsthand, recounting details from centuries before his time as though they were recent memories. On several occasions, he claimed to have been present at the wedding of Francis I of France in 1514, nearly 200 years before his first recorded appearance in Paris. His knowledge of history was so intimate and personal that many began to suspect he might be far older than he appeared. One of the most intriguing stories comes from a woman named Countess von György, who swore that she had met Saint Germain in Venice in 1710 when she was a young woman. When she encountered him again in Paris some 50 years later, she was shocked to find that he had not aged a day. The Countess claimed that Saint Germain looked exactly as he had 5 decades earlier. When confronted, Saint Germain reportedly smiled and said, "I am very old." The idea that Saint Germain could be centuries old was not as outlandish in the 18th century as it might seem today. The Enlightenment era was also a time of great interest in alchemy and the occult. Alchemists sought the Philosopher's Stone, a legendary substance said to grant eternal life and turn base metals into gold. Saint Germain's mastery of alchemical knowledge only added to the aura of mystery that surrounded him. He was known to conduct experiments in his private laboratory, and some believed that he had unlocked the secret to immortality. The legend of the Wonderman. One of the more colorful aspects of Saint Germain's reputation was his role as what might be termed a Wonderman, or someone capable of remarkable feats beyond the comprehension of ordinary people. The philosopher Voltaire, a man known for his skepticism, described Saint Germain as a man who never dies and who knows everything. While this was said with some sarcasm, it reflects the awe in which he was held by many of his contemporaries. Saint Germain was a master of chemistry and alchemy, and there are numerous accounts of his ability to create precious gemstones, remove flaws from diamonds, and produce dyes and pigments of remarkable brilliance and quality. He was said to possess the secret of fusing small diamonds into larger stones, a feat that even modern science finds difficult to replicate. In addition to his chemical and alchemical prowess, Saint Germain was regarded as a healer. He reportedly concocted medicines that could prolong life and cure diseases. Madame de Pompadour, the famous mistress of King Louis XV, swore by the Count's remedies, claiming that they had restored her health on numerous occasions. Saint Germain himself rarely, if ever, ate in public. At court banquets, while others gorged on the rich cuisine of the time, Saint Germain was said to subsist on nothing but a few bites of bread and a glass of water, wine, or tea. He claimed that he had discovered a way to sustain himself without the need for food, another element that contributed to the air of mystery around him. Saint Germain and European politics. Despite his eccentricities, Saint Germain was not a mere charlatan or entertainer. He had real influence in the political and diplomatic circles of Europe. His relationship with Louis XV was close enough that the king reportedly entrusted him with delicate diplomatic missions. Saint Germain played a behind-the-scenes role in brokering peace between Britain and France during the 7 Years' War, and his influence extended beyond France's borders. He travelled across Europe, appearing in the courts of Vienna, The Hague, and London, always at ease among the elite, and always seemingly welcome despite his elusive background. In London, Saint Germain's presence was particularly controversial. He became involved with prominent members of British society, including Lord Holdernesse, then the Secretary of State for the Northern Department, and other high-ranking politicians. It was said that he used his charm and intellect to win favour, and on occasion, he was suspected of espionage. At various points, his political manoeuvres aroused suspicion, and Saint Germain was regarded with a combination of respect and wariness. Despite his diplomatic engagements, Saint Germain always seemed to maintain an air of neutrality. He never fully committed himself to the cause of any single nation, nor did he stay in one place for long. His mobility, combined with his deep knowledge of state secrets and courtly intrigues, made him a figure of both admiration and suspicion. There was never any definitive proof of his involvement in espionage, but given his high-level connections and mysterious comings and goings, it is a possibility that cannot be entirely dismissed. The Philosopher and the Alchemist. Saint Germain's greatest passion, however, seemed to lie in his search for knowledge. He was deeply interested in the esoteric and mystical traditions, and he devoted much of his time to studying alchemy, the Kabbalah, and Eastern philosophy. Many who knew him regarded him as a sage, a man of profound wisdom who had transcended the ordinary concerns of human life. He claimed to have traveled extensively in the East, India, Persia, and even China, where he supposedly learned ancient secrets that granted him extraordinary powers. One of the enduring mysteries surrounding Saint Germain is his apparent obsession with alchemy and immortality. He spoke often of the philosopher's stone, the mythical substance capable of transforming base metals into gold and granting eternal life. While many alchemists of the time were charlatans, Saint Germain's knowledge of chemistry and his ability to produce seemingly miraculous results lent credibility to his claims. He produced dyes, pigments, and treatments that astonished the scientific community of his time. He also purportedly possessed a vast knowledge of natural remedies and longevity treatments, though these have largely been lost to history. Even more bizarre, however, were his frequent claims of having achieved immortality. In addition to the Countess von Georgi's account of Saint Germain's unchanging appearance, there were numerous reports of people encountering him decades after he was first introduced into European society, each time appearing exactly as they remembered him. A particularly notable account came from the writer and philosopher Comte de la Motte Langon, who wrote that he encountered Saint Germain in 1785, 43 years after his supposed death. The encounter, de la Motte Langon claimed, was brief, but Saint Germain appeared not to have aged at all. Similarly, accounts from as late as the 19th century describe sightings of Saint Germain, still as youthful and vibrant as ever, though by this point the line between fact and fiction becomes increasingly blurred. The death of Saint Germain. Despite his claims of immortality, Saint Germain is recorded as having died in 1784, according to official records in the German Principality of Schleswig. He was staying at the estate of Prince Charles of Hesse-Kassel, one of the many European nobles with whom Saint Germain had formed a close relationship. The official cause of death was recorded as pneumonia, but even in death, Saint Germain managed to maintain his mystique. For one, his burial is said to have been carried out with minimal fanfare, and no grave marker was ever placed. This fact has led many to speculate that Saint Germain never truly died, or that the man who died in Schleswig was not the real Saint Germain. There is no confirmed evidence that the body buried was indeed his, and the lack of any clear identification has allowed theories of his continued existence to flourish. For years after his supposed death, people continued to claim sightings of Saint Germain across Europe. Some modern scholars argue that Saint Germain may have faked his death to slip into obscurity and continue his work without the constant attention of the courts. Others suggest that the man was in fact mortal, but that his extraordinary knowledge and talents created a myth around him, a myth that has only grown with time. Legacy and modern interpretations. The legend of Saint Germain has endured well beyond his supposed death. In the 19th and 20th centuries, he was embraced by various occult and spiritualist movements as a symbol of immortality and esoteric wisdom. Theosophists, in particular, adopted him as a figure of spiritual significance, believing that he was an ascended master, a being who had achieved a higher state of consciousness and immortality. Theosophical writings claim that Saint Germain continues to work behind the scenes to guide humanity's spiritual development, and some esoteric groups today still regard him as an immortal teacher who walks among us. He has become a prominent figure in New Age and esoteric traditions, his name invoked as a symbol of enlightenment, wisdom, and the possibility of transcending death. Yet despite all the myths and speculations, the historical figure of the Count of Saint Germain remains elusive. His true origins, the scope of his knowledge, and the reasons for his extraordinary influence across Europe's courts remain tantalizingly out of reach. What is clear is that Saint Germain was no ordinary man. His intelligence, charisma, and breadth of knowledge set him apart, even in an age filled with remarkable figures. Whether he was a genius, a charlatan, or something more remains an open question, one that continues to fascinate scholars and mystics alike. Conclusion. The story of the Count of Saint Germain endures because it touches on universal human concerns, the search for knowledge, the desire for immortality, and the boundaries between fact and legend. His historical presence was undeniable, yet the legends surrounding him raise questions that may never be answered. Was he truly an immortal being, a brilliant alchemist who discovered the secrets of longevity? Or was he a man who understood the power of myth and used it to his advantage? Whatever the truth, the Count of Saint Germain's life and legacy continue to intrigue and inspire those who seek to understand the deeper mysteries of existence. Thank you for spending time with us through Spookscope today. Feel free to share your wisdom and knowledge in the comment section, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends and family. Until next time, my dear spooker, stay curious.